A very good afternoon to everyone. On behalf of ASK Wealth Advisor, a very warm welcome to all our guests to a special edition of Wisdom Series, a platform where we bring industry thought leaders and successful entrepreneurs to share their insight and wisdom with us. Our special guest for today is Mr. Vivek Chaand Sehgal, Chairman, Motherson Group, who will be in conversation with Mr. Rajesh Saluja, MD and CEO, ASK Wealth Advisors. As you are aware, ASK is one of the most reputed and trusted wealth management and family office firm for the super rich in India, and Mr. Saluja founded the wealth business for the ASK Group in 2007. He has over 3 decades of experience in investment and wealth management. Over to Mr. Saluja. Please take over the session. Sir, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a very special conversation today with Mr. Vivek Chaand Sehgal, who chairs a $12 billion revenue Motherson Group, which was set up in 1975 with an initial investment of only ₹1,000. It's been a remarkable journey for Mr. Sehgal, who founded the company with his mother as a silver trading outfit, hence the name Motherson. In 1983, he set up a wire harness business when Maruti came into India and basically supplying to Maruti at that time. But in 1986, Mr. Sehgal established the group's flagship, Motherson Sumi Systems, as a joint venture with Japan's Sumitomo Wiring Systems that today is India's largest automobile component manufacturer. Mr. Sehgal has since expanded the group largely through acquisitions, 22 of which are in the last 17 years, with a client list that includes Audi, BMW, Ford, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, and Volkswagen. The group now has more than 270 factories in 41 countries with close to US $10.6 billion of revenue. The group has a diversified industry-leading portfolio of auto ancillary products and services that makes it a full system solution provider for its consumers across the globe. It has market-leading products ranging from electrical distribution systems, automotive rear-view mirrors, and polymer processing to lighting systems, air intake manifolds, and HVAC systems. Presently, 49% of the total group revenues come from the Europe and UK. A down-to-earth, people-oriented, awarded the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur for the Year in 2016 award, and also the Entrepreneur of the Year at the Forbes India Leadership Awards in 2018. This was for his entrepreneurial vision, execution, foresight, and courage to scale his business to unprecedented heights. It's my privilege to have Mr. Sehgal speaking with us today and sharing his thoughts related to the auto industry, both India and globally, be it challenges, opportunities, or the needs of the industry. We will begin with the Q&A with Mr. Sehgal, followed by a Q&A session with our esteemed guests who are joining us today on the webinar. I'm going to break the session into 2 parts. First, of course, being related to the current crisis and its shorter and long-term impact on the auto sector. Secondly, I'll have it more related to the overall opportunities and challenges in the industry that are more structural in nature, be it related to electric vehicles or concepts of shared mobility. Okay, so starting the first session, let me just put Mr.
Hello, Rajesh. I'm on. If you're looking for my listing, there.
Yes. Okay.
Go ahead.
So my first question, Mr. Sehgal, is if you could throw some light on the ground realities due to the current state of lockdown. How is the global auto industry, both OEM and auto ancillaries, prepared? And what are the steps they are taking to handle the current situation due to COVID? And when I talk about how are they handling it? It's basically preparedness in terms of handling issues such as labor, migrant labor, cost structure, balance sheet, etc.
Well, first of all, good afternoon to you and to all your people who are on the web. I can't know how much they are and who they are, but ladies and gentlemen, it's a very warm welcome from my side. I will try and do my best to make Rajesh's expectations come true. Motherson is a bit of a complicated company, and we are in 41 countries. So we could hear the sound of COVID problem expanding much earlier than many of our colleagues and things like that. Because right from January and February, when the Chinese New Year was happening, at that time, China had already gone into trouble. 27 plants in China, one by one, they shut down. And that kind of gave us an idea of what this complication can be. Earlier on, we had done a project called Project Victory because this is the final year of our 5-year plan. And in March, that ended. And we had made it a big effort in the group to bring ROCE. We are a ROCE-oriented company, which is a return on capital employed. So we got all the things that would improve our ROCE was then concised into Project Victory. So two ways we were a bit luckier than many of them. So ground reality at the moment, you already know that in India, the automotive sector is virtually on a kind of a clampdown, other than a few approvals given basically to cover the exports and things like that, or whatever other necessities. Everything seems to be in a standstill. I won't delve too much on the Indian this thing, but I'll take you out. In China, I told you we had a situation where we had about close to 27 plants were shut down earlier. So the fourth quarter of Motherson Sumi was a bit constrained because of that. But it also gave us a lot of important things to do. So we were very ready. The lockdown in India almost happened very, very suddenly. It was announced by the Honorable Prime Minister, and we had to shut down. But we knew what all had to be done. So we were working more towards all those particular things to take care. We, in Europe, also had a similar situation. Most of the companies started to close down because the governments were trying to shut down. Same thing happened in the Americas, North America and South America. When all of them, one by one, they started to shut down. So now we have almost about 45 days in India, but globally we have almost about 42% of our plants are opening. They're working fine. So I think it will take time a little bit, but definitely will come back to normal pretty soon. I think OEM and auto ancillaries are directly related. As you know, 80% of the car is made by the auto anc players. So honestly, if you keep hearing that the car maker, this car maker, that car maker, or that two-wheeler maker, or the commercial vehicle guy is opening up, definitely his entire chain, supply chain is also opening up. So that's the good news that's there. I think it is going to be very soon. That in India also, I think within the next 2 days, 3 days, we'll start to see our plants opening up here. So China, Korea, Japan already opened, India opening up, Europe already opened some portions, depends upon the government, depends upon the severity of COVID-19. They are opening, but they are much more open since they're more liberal. They don't have these kind of clampdowns, which we are seeing in India. And in America also, some of our plants are open. Mexico, a lot of plants are opening up. So every day, every week, we get some news that some of our plants, this plant or that plant has opened up. So I think things like labor and all that, migrant labor and all that, Motherson is not affected. We have very highly skilled workforce. They have to be trained, and so we are not really affected too much about the migrant workforce and things like that. We are constantly in touch with our workforce, and we are trying to tell them this is what the status is. I think within the next week or so, you will start to see everybody is mobile, has a mobile nowadays. So our HR people are doing a phenomenal job. They're in contact with all the workforce. So I think we will have a much smoother this thing over here in India. Globally, we don't see a problem. They are very, very well communicated with all of them.
So how did you manage the cost structure, the cost part in these last 2 months, global and domestic? In the earlier conversations, you were mentioning something about what certain countries like Germany, etc.
Yeah,
some of that with us.
Yeah, I think other than India, we have got tremendous help from almost all the governments, because they are worried that the workforce would be pretty much without money. So we have not deducted any salary from anybody. We have paid this thing. But many of the governments are very, very aware of this. In fact, in some of the countries, in the third day, we had money in our banks. So really, we are very grateful to all the governments that understood the kind of position that we are in. So I think they are much more open to this. And in Germany, third day, the money was in the bank.
So how much time approximately do you think it will take for normalcy to return?
Rajesh, that's anybody's guess. Every country is different. If you talk about a particular country, I can probably answer that better. But believe me, what we have learned from China, we are seeing that after the lockdown was opened, the rush towards opening, to going to the dealerships and buying the cars and things like that was amazing. And that was very heartening. And I think if you think about it, people will come back to this mindset that they need their own private car, their own car where they can control the environment and who sits in it and who doesn't.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. Next question is, what would your advice be to, let's say, the tier 1 and tier 2 auto suppliers, the smaller ones, with regards to steps they should take for next 2 quarters at least to sustain the impact of this lockdown? Any specific advice you'd like to give them or guidance? Because there are many of the smaller lot that are very severely affected.
You're absolutely right. I think in globally, we are not so much affected because the tier 2 and tier 1, tier 2s are all sort of taken care of. Luckily for our main businesses, the raw materials are made by big companies, so we don't really have to tell them anything. They're also as happy to come and start to supply. But my advice for India, especially tier 1 and tier 2 auto suppliers, is they have to be very flexible, because the demand is going to change dramatically. The whole particular thing is going to change. They have to be very quick in their response. And honestly, they must tell their tier 1 supplier or to the automaker what the real situation is. So I think in such circumstance, the last thing that they want to lose is trust. So I think if they can maintain flexibility, quick response, trust, and they're honest with their next income, whoever is buying their product, I think they will not let the supply chain down. So I think also financially, the banks and the government definitely has to do something for the Indian MSME and the other kind of companies which are there. I do not know why they have been kept back as a last this thing. I hope the government will do something very quickly. Of course, we are hearing a lot of the politicians that they're around the corner. So I think once these particular things are in place, I think India will bounce back very strong, very quickly. People keep talking about alphabets for comeback. I'm telling you, think about Warren Buffett selling off all the airline stocks. I think air travel is going to be a big no-no for some time, at least for 6 months or something like that. And definitely people are going to be using the cars more. So that's my take on this particular thing.
Yeah, that's a great insight. Also, I think lots of industries have recently started talking about having a part of their workforce work from home, remote locations, home, basically to reduce the physical infrastructure cost. Do you see that happening in the auto industry, or would that be largely confined to service industries? What are the areas you think where in the auto industry work can be done with remote locations? Is that a possibility, or how much of it is a possibility?
I don't give it more than 10-15% because at the end of the day you need the machines, you need equipment to convert so that you can then make the component. But yeah, I think the software side, the HR, this thing, and all these particular things can be. We definitely have to learn the new way, how we are going to manufacture, how we are going to be operating. While all this is great, I think the more important part for us in manufacturing is that we can't, break down our products into such a way that we can actually get it made at home and then bring it back or something. And the quality and the severity of the need for accuracy doesn't allow us to do that very easily. So my guess would be 10-15%, not more. Not more, I think.
Yeah. Okay, coming to now the demand scenario. How do you see it playing out once this COVID issue normalizes? Given the economic impact of COVID in terms of job losses, slowdown in the economy, do you think that the auto demand will take a lot longer to revive, or do you expect it to be a sharp recovery once situation starts normalizing? How do you really see the demand scenario even in India for both passenger and commercial vehicles? And broadly, what are the automakers telling you? When are they when do they see, from their or hear from their dealers that the demand will be back?
On the lighter side, I don't think there's one person who's working who is enjoying being at home and locked down. So I think all of them are gunning to get back to work and all that. I think the experience in China and Korea is very relevant. People moved around, they avoided more public transport, they avoided the new regulations didn't allow the occupying of the buses and the trains and things like that to that much. Probably that was the reason, one of the reasons why people flock to the dealerships that much more. I think the demand is there, dramatic demand is there. The only question is liquidity. Rajesh, just if you calculate the amount of money that has been put into the system is amazing. I mean, trillions and trillions of dollars have gone through all across the globe. I'm not for a moment talking about India, but trillions of dollars have gone in. So I think there is no doubt in my mind that over there, as soon as this particular thing will happen, the demand will come back very, very quickly. In Europe, definitely you can't operate if you don't have a car. You can't operate because it's that much more faster for you to go to your customer or things like that. The only chink in the armor is that people have learned to talk through webs and cameras and things like that. So that could be a spoil sport somewhere. But I don't know how many people would be that tech savvy that they would be able to do everything on that. So it's a bit of a thing that we have to watch what is happening. The purchasing guys always like the people to be sitting in front of them so that they can negotiate better. So a lot of things is going to play out. So it's going to be very, very interesting times in the next 3 months, 6 months. But one thing is for sure, we are all dying to go back to work and really learn quickly what is this new environment going to be. So I think my bet is that automotive will come back very, very quickly, and not necessarily only two-wheelers, but even four-wheelers will do very well. And especially the entry-level cars will do very well, because I think people will be that much more careful, because if they can control the environment inside the car, they'd probably be that much better, I think.
And do you see that for India also? Demand coming back quickly? V-shaped kind of recovery, or take time given the amount of job losses or slowdown, etc. For both passenger and commercial? If you could even throw some light on commercial vehicles if possible.
Well, the commercial vehicles will really do very well. I don't see why they would not do well, because the amount of things that have to be transported is going to be huge. And it has to be delivered. You look at all the delivery for food, for things that you want to buy. If you're not going to go to the mall, you're going to be delivered at home. So I think commercial vehicles are a no-brainer. They don't make too many of them anyway. So I think they will come back very fast. But again, these are things which in the first 3 months we'll come to know what the trends are. My thing is that we are very, very quick learners. I think the way we came out of many of our past crises tells us that Indians are brilliant on a comeback. They come back very fast. So yeah, I would put my money on that we will come back from this very quickly. We will learn very quickly, and we will come back very quickly.
And any insights from your clients, the bigger players, BMW, Mercedes, Volkswagen, are they all gearing up to meet the demand post-COVID, or is it business as usual, or is it fractured for some time? Could you share some insights there?
Yeah, I mean, they all have gone through their closures and all that. But believe me, if our plants are open, see, one of the key thing about Motherson is we're a 99% OEM automotive company. We make over 3,000 odd products, supplying to almost all the car makers in the world. Now, we don't supply anything into the aftermarket. So ours is OEM. So if my plants are opening up, all these customers are already opened up already. They can't do without us auto component suppliers, because 80% of the car or the bus or the truck or whatever, scooter, whatever, is made outside the car maker's premises. So if he even thinks of making a car, he needs all his auto suppliers to be there. So that's why I feel that they're all opened up. They're all in different stages of plants and readiness, and also already producing. And one of the key things that I'm kind of thinking about is that all the shutdown happened pretty quickly. I mean, there was hardly any notice given. And I think the startup of many of the plants, especially in India, are going to be very slow, whatever we hear from our car makers. And if that's going to be the case, then cars are definitely going to be in a premium, because the dealerships and the car yards are only having that many cars. So I think you'll have a run on the cars for sure. Even the entry-level cars and all that will do very well, I think. That's my guess. But it's personal.
With regards norms like social distancing, etc., being brought to the play post the opening up of the economy, do you see any changes in the way your plants or manufacturing units will operate? Will there be any changes that need to be made both globally and domestically for the way the plants operate from here on, given the social distancing norms?
You're right. In fact, the government has said that you can't have more than 33% of your workforce and people in a plant or an office or something like that. So definitely we have, all our plants have been busy trying to realign and come to this particular mindset is that, you can do that. And that's exactly my point, Rajesh, that you will have a situation where all these things are going to slow down the normal production rate of the car companies and things like that. So you would probably see reason in what I was saying that, you will have shortage of cars. And that's why the second-hand car market is so ripe just now, you can't imagine. I mean, it's never been that buoyant.
Okay. Do you see any major change in the global supply chain landscape post the COVID? Any particular segment or area where there could be changes in the global landscape?
Oh, definitely. I think there's going to be a lot of pain in the system. We are already getting the calls from car makers telling us to look at suppliers who have already gone bust. Our M&A teams are pretty busy trying to evaluate how and where, and actually prioritizing what is important for the car makers. Landscape will definitely change. There'll be a lot of people who will sell out, and the pain will lie more in the medium to big, kind of area. I think the logic of that is that the owners or the people who run that particular business will have difficulty because even in Europe, there is tremendous amount of migratory workforce. I think some of them would come into the pressure because as it is, the automotive had slowed down since 2018. So I think there is going to be some serious landscape change. And even though it's not a very great situation, but Motherson has been asked time and again to come in and take over companies which are in trouble. So landscape will definitely change.
What you're saying is that there could be a silver lining in what is happening, especially for the large auto ancillaries. Would large, reliable ancillaries benefit in some way? Is that what you're saying? Because if some of the smaller auto ancillaries find it difficult to survive the current crisis, would that mean more M&A opportunities for larger auto ancillaries?
Sure, you're right. The larger ones, the global ones will definitely gain out of this. But I think there is a difference this time than before. Earlier on, it didn't matter who was taking over the company. Now there is going to be that much more importance where people who are already local companies there will have the preference. As you know, even in India, they have now said that, no company can be bought by India. Germany has done the same. There's so many countries which are following that same thing. America is already there. So if you are a local company there and you have a good track record, then you are to gain. I don't think it's going to be an opportunity for guys who are not there in that country, just walk in, pick up the company pretty cheap or something like that. I don't think that's going to happen. So definitely, if you've been following this as a policy, you are going to gain dramatically from this.
Right. Before I get into the second section of this interview related to more structural changes, I would like to make a small announcement to all guests who have logged in. You will notice a Q&A mark on the top of your screen. Please type in your questions so that I can address them to Mr. Sehgal post the second session. I do understand that this session may not be enough to cover all questions given time constraints. Hence, my request is that we keep the questions brief and to the point. Right, now moving to structural changes, that we've discussed also earlier, and it's a favorite topic of yours. Let's look at electric mobility. The world has been trying to move towards electric mobility in the last few years, and there's been lots of work going around in terms of technology. And one of the benefits of electric mobility, apart from lower emission, is also low operating costs of running the vehicle. But now with oil at such a low price, do you think there would be a delay in move towards electric mobility? Also because, electric vehicles are generally costlier. And given that we would see deterioration in economic income, would it therefore take now much more time for electric mobility to get accepted? What are your thoughts around this?
So first, I would like to say that Motherson, we produce over 3,000 products. We are not affected by the engine. It doesn't make a difference to us whether you choose electric engine or petrol engine or diesel engine. We are engine agnostic, means it doesn't affect us at all. But if you go to Stuttgart, you go to the Porsche Museum, the first car that you will see by Porsche was in 1931, and that had an electric engine. So, it's not something new. Electric engine is not something new. If you were really interested, very quickly, the electric engine came out from the tram car. That was the origin of the whole thing. We used to have trams, and they were known as tram cars, and the car was not following a track. Hence, the electric engine came out from there. But quickly, the world moved after Carl Benz and Robert Bosch figured out what diesel engine was, because electric engine gives you a tremendous amount of torque. That's what the fun feeling is. You can do 100 kilometers an hour in like 2 seconds flat or less. But if you don't have the torque, then you're in trouble. Many of you may have seen these electric rickshaws. They don't go from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds flat because they have no torque. So we have to learn to distinguish between a normal electric battery run kind of a thing and an electric car. The reason why it's more expensive is it's working on 72 volts or 240 amps. And if by mistake somebody touches that wire, he's ash. He's gone to cinders. He's gone. So there are a lot of things about electric car, why people chose to go into the ICE engine. So today, everybody thinks electric car is amazing because of blah, blah, blah. And actually, it's not the right this thing, because I can prove it to you. And just go very quickly. We have 65 million kilometers of road in the world. 65 million. India is the second largest road network in the world. This is all from Economist, World Facts. You can pick it up. We are bigger than China, by the way. We are over 1 million kilometers more than China. Now the problem comes, only 27% of these roads go through cities and towns. Now, I can understand you electrify that, but what about the other 73%? You will have a huge problem. Today, we are the 4th largest rail network in the world, and we still haven't been able to electrify all our tracks. So I think in India, Rakam is more important. Roti Kapda Makan is much more important than electrifying roads. So globally, they have the same problem. Some countries which have very small, this thing like Singapore and all that, they can afford to do that because the country is very small. But a country which are huge and big, it is a huge waste to be electrifying all the roads and things like that. So I think the future is somewhere between the choice of the customer. What does he want? If he wants an electric car, sure, he can buy the electric car. You want the diesel car, you want the petrol car, it's up to you. I think if you see the Euro 6 diesel car and petrol cars, their emissions are negligible. I mean, it's not a joke. It probably would be better than if you take the entire cost of environment on an electric engine and put it together. I think the diesel and petrol will win. Secondly, I think the economic front, you will find that electric engine is very detrimental to the governments because most of the money is being earned from petrol and fuel. So today we heard that Delhi has increased the diesel cost and petrol cost, and they call it a COVID tax. Well, if all are going to be in electric cars, where are they going to get that money from? And electricity apparently for many of the people is free. So I'm just saying it's an economic thing. All over the world, governments, nobody has reduced their petrol prices because the oil prices came down. Last particular thing that I would like to put in front of everybody is that, you are today sitting on a particular issue, which is the automotive. If you take out the automotive as a company from the whole world, then every industry will fall together with it. You look at it, the banking, the amount of funding, the raw materials, I don't know, the steel, the copper, the zinc, all the metals that you can think about. Look at all the banking, look at all the pop and mom garages, look at all the petrol stations. Just look at the amount of people that you will make absolutely redundant. So I think the government and everybody has to think about that also. I think there are so many challenges on the electric side, and I would say that with the oil prices where they are today, I would say that's almost a difficult thing for revival of electric cars. But anyway, if people feel that it's more important, definitely they will buy it. I don't object to that. I have nothing against it.
Right. Okay. What about shared mobility playing out in the near to medium term? In light of the COVID situation, given that people would be more careful about traveling with unknowns and would still want to maintain a social distance, would this be a positive for demand, especially for cars, if shared mobility reduces? Because until now, we were hearing about the Ola Uber culture, and most people are willing to take these cabs instead of buying their car. But you see the situation now flipping to the other side with people wanting their own cars.
Yes, I think so. And definitely we were never thinking that Uber and Ola would be things, or companies like that would be a threat to the automotive. Because think about it, normally you use your car about 6-7% of its time. But Ola and Uber and those kind of companies are using the car almost 16-17 hours per day. And if they have shift drivers, it almost goes to 20 hours per day. So the car is a mechanical thing. It can only take that many kilometers. So you don't want to be sitting in Archie's Jalopy to be going into your office and things like that. So I think we are not worried about shared mobility on that. But I think under COVID, people are definitely going to think twice, because India is a hot country, and people are going to be sitting, they're going to be sweating, a lot of things are going to be happen. The viruses seem to flourish on plastics and metal also. So I don't know. It depends upon whether all the cars will be carrying the liquids to wash your hand and wash your whatever you touch. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's going to be fun watching. My bet is that people, before the cure is found, they will definitely prefer to use their own, I think. So shared mobility doesn't bother us, but I think it will reduce to a great extent.
Okay, now a question related to automation. Do you see the global auto industry changing in terms of automation? And when I say automation, I mean it in two parts. One is automation within the car to make the experience much better. And the other is, of course, automated driving, including a lot of data being used to improve the experience of any individual driving a car. What are the opportunities you are seeing or hearing about both in India and abroad, and with your large auto clients? And what kind of opportunities?
Sorry, Rajesh, I lost you in the end.
What are the opportunities it throws up for large auto players, auto ancillary players like Motherson?
So I think one must be pretty careful with autonomous cars, because they are remote controllable, and in these age of where people think they can become overnight heroes or whatever, just banging a car into a building or something. I think there's going to be a rethink over there. My this thing is that whatever automation which had to happen in the car already exists in cars. In the upper end cars, if you look at a Maybach or 8 Series BMWs or things like that, you will find that whatever level of automation, whichever the government is comfortable with, is already there in the car. I think the question of liability is a big one. It's not going to be easy to try and say where does the liability lie. But I was pretty much enthused from the Bernstein report, which talked about CASE and how CASE doesn't have a business case. So, the connected portion today, I think you already have it in your hand. It's the handheld telephone. That's where all the connections are going to be coming. So I don't think the car is going to be having something special, which is going to connect you more. I think automated or autonomous have already talked to you about. Shared vehicle we already discussed, and electric we've discussed. So I would recommend that if you can get a hold of Bernstein's report on this particular case, you will be very much aligned with our thinking. Motherson also has one particular advantage. We are always being approached by car makers for looking at companies which are in trouble. You can imagine that billions of dollars has been spent by the world trying to find out case and case-related advantages and things like that. So many of them, for every one company which is successful, there are 20 which are in the dumps. Not one car maker has asked us to take over a company which was related to these. They have died, and the car makers have not even bothered to revive them. So that kind of sends to me a very important message that we have to be very careful, that we have to be great responders. We don't want to have a strategy. Rajesh, I started working in Motherson in 1975, and I was 18 years old at that time. For the past 45 years, I have yet to see a strategy which has worked. So I have seen that if you can respond very fast to what the need is, you are a great survivor. And we in Motherson, I keep telling my guys, don't tell me you have a strategy. It doesn't work. What you need is you have a challenge, and how do you respond to that particular thing? We try to guess where the targets are, and targets are not for us something new. We set targets where we want to be, and we then try our best to reach that particular point. So I think, just the thought that, people are going to come and tell you what is going to happen to the world, I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to take its own path. And for us, I think response is phenomenal. If you can respond, it's amazing.
Okay, now we look at some questions that have come up, Mr. Sehgal, and yep. I'll just share a few with you. One, of course, is the first question is, what growth rates are you looking at for auto and auto ancillary sector for FY21 and 22 overall? Do you have any sense of overall industry and the likely growth for 21 and 22? Will it be negative, flat? Do you see it improving in 22?
So I'm a born optimist. So for me, you'll have growth this year also. So I mean, in a relative manner, but you will have growth this year also. But I think, again, if we are going to look at a number or something like that, that's not me. I don't do that. In fact, people are keeping talking about nowadays, they're saying negative GDP, this, that. In Motherson, you can also Google it. GDP in Motherson means get drunk party. We don't worry too much about what the economics is. I think you have to set your standards and then go for it. So my advice to my team is focus on the customer. What does the customer want? And then supply. Make sure that you don't have a vehicle short. So we are ready for 20% up, we're ready for 5% down, 10% down, 20% down. Doesn't make a difference. We will supply exactly what the car maker wants.
Also, with this lockdown that happened, do you think the BA6 transition now will be delayed in India, or do you still see it happening as per plans?
No, I think the courts are very clear about it. Only 10% of the BS4 cars are being able to be sold. Rest have to go, I do not know where. But I think once the government has decided BS6, so be it. I think almost all the car makers are already producing BS6. I don't see anybody who's going to keep on producing BS4. That's my take on it.
There's a question that's come related to hydrogen cell cars. Given that China produces 70% of the world's lithium needed for electric cars, will the emphasis now shift to hydrogen cell cars?
By the way, it's a great idea to Google when was fuel cell discovered. And my friends will learn that it was discovered in 1830 something. So it's almost going to be another 10 years, it's going to be like 200 years, and you still don't have a fuel cell refrigerator. Forget a car. So yeah, cars are great. They're there. Toyota produces a car called Mirai, which is a fuel cell car. But please understand, think about it. If you have a fuel dispensing station right next to your house and in a block, and if it's in the center, then if the fuel station catches fire, God forbid, the houses around that particular thing will probably break a glass or two. If it's a LNG or a CNG, the first row of houses is gone. And if it's a hydrogen tank filling station, the whole block would have gone. So, my friend, it comes with its own challenges. It's not so easy. So, Mirai, if you're in Nagoya, you want to do it, it's in the mountains. You have to go to fill hydrogen into your car. Believe me, ICE is a great thing. Our ancestors were not fools; they were very wise people.
Okay. You were mentioning a lot of representations, etc., being made to the government and the relevant people within that. What do you think are some of the steps the government needs to take specific to the auto and auto ancillary industry? While you are hopeful, you mentioned that you're hopeful, but do you really feel having the maximum impact? What kind of measures that the government should take according to you?
They should open up. That see, the government has to do many things which the government only has to do. You know, we can't show them. We are affected people, so we will take our decisions the way we would like to. But I think the government has many challenges and many things which they are considering. So we don't like to ask them. So Motherson is never there in any of the things saying that, can you do this, can you do this? I think they will do what they have to do. You know, India is a very unique country. We were 563 countries which became one, you know, so we are not homogeneous. And that is probably the biggest challenge that the government of India faces. We are not a homogeneous lot. In Japan, if they decide that this is going to happen, believe me, everybody will follow that because they all think similar. I don't want to find faults or things like that, but I just say, let the government do what they're doing. Let the demand be what it is in actual this thing, and allow the people to work. And unfortunately, you know, I was just reading, I think it was India Today. I was reading the editorial this thing, and he said that, you know, everybody's keeping account on COVID deaths. Who's keeping account on the hunger deaths? Nobody's counting the people who died of hunger. So I don't know, you know, where's the balance? This, the lousy thing about this particular thing is it defies your moral balance also. So I would say let everybody do what they're doing. We are following must respond to what the customer is saying, must respond to what the government is saying. And I think somewhere there lies the truth.
So,
I can't hear you, Rajesh. Rajesh, I can't hear you.
yes, I said, so nothing specific as a fiscal stimulus to the auto industry in any way, either from a tax point of view or anything else. Right now, there are no suggestions or conversations happening related to it.
I think the industry majors and SIAM and ACMA and all these guys have already made whatever representation, and I'm sure that's going to be very, very important for all the people concerned. We don't want anything extra, but I think again to support the ridiculous position where the government of India has landed itself because of COVID-19. I would be patient and allow them to take care of the people who need the thing more, and we would follow. We would follow. You know, Motherson, from like almost 15 years ago, we came out with a very simple principle. We said 3CX15, which meant 3C and 15 means no component, no country, no car maker more than 15% of our turnover. And we are laughing all the way to the bank because we have made sure that we are totally non-reliant on any of this thing. While we are 100% with the Indian government and the Indian people and our factories in India, but we are, if you can allow me to say that, we are knowledgeable enough to understand that the government of India has its own limitations, and we can sustain if they delay it even for a week or 10 days. We don't care. It's okay. We'll sustain.
Related to the supply chain disruption, how much more appetite does Motherson have from an acquisition perspective, given that you said that a lot of smaller, mid-sized players will be in trouble?
No, even big guys are going to be in trouble.
For now.
I think one particular thing is very important. Motherson is not worried about how much appetite we have. We are always on acquisition mode. We don't have any issues to take over more and more companies, and we definitely will in the coming time that is there in front of us. Of course, we are limited to our fiscal discipline that we will keep. That's something that has kept us very strong even in these most difficult times. So, barring that, yeah, definitely Motherson has huge appetite to take over companies. So we can choose. That's the beauty of this part.
And any news on what's the mood in automotive OEM boardrooms in favor of switching supply chain in medium terms to India? Is India likely to gain? We keep talking about the shifting of supply chain to India, and if we can take
I don't think.
No,
I don't think so. I don't think so because we are too complicated a country. We are so complicated. It's unbelievable. Our left hand, smallest finger doesn't know what the thumb of that hand is doing. Well, forget about body and arm, brains and everything. It's unbelievable. So I don't know, unless there is an emergency, then India starts to move phenomenally. We really move fast. But very difficult to catch the nuances of global supply chain. Really, where I mean, at the drop of a hat, you can get a law from a small city which can destroy your entire global commitments. So not easy, I think. People will think, yeah, it's very nationalistic to get the business into India. I would be very surprised. I would be very surprised. I have a plant in Kandla. Do you know that the Kandla export zone was established in 1960? 1960, they had the concept of a free zone, no encumbrances. And yet you can see, how Singapore and Hong Kong and all these countries came up. They learned everything from us. When you go there in his office, Lal Bahadur Shastri Sahab actually inaugurated that. So think about it, it's that old. And it was closed down because every company that came, every person that came, he then came and shut down this gate, shut down this gate, shut down this gate. With the result, it was totally dead. So for anybody who thinks that, yeah, India is going to get a huge this thing, I would welcome him to go to Kandla and see what happened there and how the government then closes its gates,
Very interesting question that's come. I was expecting this. It says that China has always been a major source of raw materials for a number of parts. What is the general sentiment regarding Chinese raw material post-COVID-19? Has Motherson Sumi also taken any steps to reduce dependency on Chinese products?
I don't think there is that many raw materials that are coming from China from Motherson. We are more with the European and the car makers. They decide what kind of raw materials we have to use. So other than my Chinese customers, I don't see where we are. In China, we are producing for China. We don't export out of China. So, or any country actually. We don't export from any country. Very, very little exports. So I think Motherson has been a bit lucky. And also, we have followed the policy of local procurement, local this thing for whatever. The car makers have been very wise. I think if you go back in time, they did see a lot of trouble initially when China was also opening up at that time. But they've been wise and they've been making sure that their raw materials and all those things are coming from multiple sources. So I don't think it's that bad. Yeah, of course, if you're an electronic manufacturer and things like that, you could have a lot of trouble over there. But Motherson believes that we have to do everything ourselves. So we have 6 tool rooms to die for. I mean, amazing tool rooms we have of our own. So I think it depends upon every company, how you want to respond to that. So in our case, we are very fortunate that we have followed a policy where we are on our own almost all the time, as much as possible.
This is slightly indirect, but if you'd like to answer, how do you see the car dealership network future, and what is your message for them? People who are in the car dealing business network, is there a future?
Rajesh, I have 16 dealerships. Okay. I believe in it. Anybody who wants to sell, please come and contact me. I'm a buyer. See,
why are you excited about it?
See, because I'll tell you something, car buying is not what you imagine. It's not an entry on the computer. You want to go sit in the car. You want to smell the new car. Yeah? You want to, we are 99% automotive. We eat, drink, sleep cars. So I don't know who thinks that, dealership will have this thing and he'll just choose the color and boom, boom, boom. And then he's going to go and pick up the car from the car factory. It's not going to happen. Dealership is vital because there is an aftercare of the car. You have to be the car comes, it has to be cleaned, it has to be done and then pre-delivered to you. It's not going to be delivered by Amazon or XYZ or whoever, Flipkart or whatever you like. So it's an experience. The whole family goes to buy a car. And car is probably, if I'm not wrong, it's probably the second or the third largest asset that the family buys. So, if you come with me, my 3-year-old, 4-year-old grandson can tell you which car we are sitting in. I mean, that's the extent, I think it was Daimler which came out with an ad which said that the first 10 words that a kid learns, irrespective of the sex, whether it's boy or girl, one of them is car. So think about it. Can you see a kid who doesn't have a car or something like that? Even a villager who will make something with 2 wheels and keep dragging it around everywhere. So I don't think people understand the love that we have, our genetics have with something with mobility. So I would say dealerships have a fantastic future. Yeah, they might get squeezed in. There'll be multi-car dealerships. Many things may happen. I don't know how this COVID thing is going to affect the thinking of the people, but definitely dealership is on. They're not going to go and buy it off a computer. I'd like to see that. Somebody spending 2 million rupees just buying a color or a car from the computer.
Great. So they have a good future. Generally, raw material prices also have reduced during this period. And do you think that will be passed on to consumers when the lockdown is removed, or will it just, will each company keep it and improve its margin? Because all commodity prices have reduced.
No, that's what I was telling you. When cars don't get produced, all raw material will come shooting down. Just watch. Yeah, I think that's true. There is going to be certain realignments, rethinking, and things like that. I think a lot of car makers are also very, very much hurt. They have supported almost all the vendors. So there is going to be some pass-through. But how much? It's another thing, whether it's 100%, 90%, 80%, whatever. But I think between the car maker and the vendors, they will work it out, I guess. But yeah, I think it's due to the car makers that we should. That's the way I look at it personally.
Great. With that, I come to the end of my question-answer session. Maybe, Prasann, if you can just put up that slide on Motherson Sumi shares. We'd also like to share with you the kind of wealth that Motherson Sumi has created for its shareholders. And there's a small sort of comparison done with 2-3 other big wealth creators that are listed. If we can have that slide, please.
Yeah, I think, Rajesh, I have to do a little bit of selling for Motherson Sumi also. Basically, we have, since the time we have listed in 1993, we have delivered a top-line growth of 37% year-on-year, every year for 27 years. When we started, we were about 17, 18 crores on turnover. Today, we're about 85,000 crores or something like that. For the investors, had you invested 25,000 rupees in Motherson in 1993, today in your hand or in your pockets, you have 5.85 crores of rupees, even at the deflated price of the share because automotive suddenly went out of flavor or whatever. We have returned to our shareholders 35% every year, year on year. And that's the amazing thing about Motherson, the amazing thing of not being supplying to public, aftermarkets and things like that. It's all OEM growth that we are talking about. Amish, if you can go to Max. Just above. And if you can take it a bit down. So can you see, we have never missed in our 27 years a dividend. All the orange dots that you are seeing are bonuses that we have given. We have given 12 or 11 bonuses up till now. And if you compare the stocks, Rajesh, which stock would you want me to compare?
So the 3 names that you mentioned, HDFC Bank, Bajaj Finance.
Okay, let's go to HDFC Bank. What it will do is it will show you what is the comparison of Motherson with HDFC Bank. There you can see HDFC Bank is a straight line. You can go to Bajaj Finance. Is it Bajaj Finserv or Finance? Finance. Okay, Finance. So what you can see here is that even Bajaj Finance does not match the total return that we have given to the investors initially at a period of time. Of course, later on, after the automotive thing happened, then we went down, but they're up there. And also, even in these depressed terms, Motherson is still giving tremendous value. You can have a look at a cement stock. Maybe that might give you something. Sri Cements, I think, is probably the best. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that if you keep your focus, you keep your alignment, even in businesses where you think is very normal or very average returns and things like that, you can actually achieve a phenomenal return to the investors. So in Motherson, the investors, the customer, the society as large, and the employees are very important 4 legs of the table. So thank you very much. Rajesh, back to you.
Yes. No, thank you, Mr. Sehgal. Thank you so much for taking time out and sharing your thoughts and wisdom with us. It was actually a real privilege and pleasure hearing your thoughts. Some of the key takeaways from this were the fact that demand for cars will continue to grow, and even more so now because of social distancing, and also the fact that most airlines, people will be a little wary of traveling for quite some time. And an example is in China, where immediately after the lockdown, the demand has picked up dramatically. You also mentioned that supply chain disruptions will be there, and a lot of smaller guys will be looking to sell out because there will be, lots of M&A that will take place here, given the challenges. But you also mentioned the fact that for supply chain to shift to India, you believe that first it will shift, more locally. Local countries will have more preference given the challenges that exist today. And with regards electric cars, you mentioned, and you gave us a very good insight about the road network of 65 million square kilometers globally. Only 27% goes through cities and towns, and 73% is uncovered. So for all the governments to actually create an infrastructure to support electric cars, it'll take a very, very long time. And one of the examples itself in India is the rail network, where most of it is still not electrified. Also, the very fact that huge amount of taxes get collected by governments on diesel and petrol, for most governments to move fully to electric vehicles will be also a big challenge from a revenue perspective. So these were some of the key insights and takeaways. I'm sure everyone found the interaction very, very interesting and insightful. Yes, and you mentioned network dealers will survive and they'll have a very good future. That the experience of buying a car can't be done online, and it has to be experienced at a dealer's place. So with that, we come to the end of our session. I wish you and your team at Motherson a speedy recovery post-COVID and best wishes for the future. Keep continuing to deliver the superior performance to clients, employees, and shareholders. And we saw some of that in all the slides that you did show. It's been a fantastic journey. Congratulations to you and your entire team. Stay safe and take care. Thank you so much, Mr. Sehgal.
Thank you so much for having me.